Hi there, welcome back to Mudwalkers. My name is Chris. Go ahead and hit that subscribe button, it helps me a lot. We're almost to 1,000 subscribers already, can you believe it? Well, almost 800, which is, 800 is almost 1,000, so almost 800 counts as almost 1,000, right? That's what I think. But once I get to 1,000, I can start to contemplate monetization, which helps me by, paying my bills, but it also helps you because the more I make online, the more I get to make awesome content for you guys. So yeah, go ahead and subscribe. Check out the Patreon link in the description below, and let's get into this video. There's this thing that people say about men, right? We as Christian naturists probably hear it all the time. It's one of the things that I hear the most. And that is that, getting a bunch of naked people in a room, can people handle it? Can people handle it? Women, yeah, maybe, probably. Maybe women could do it. But men, no. Men cannot do it. Men are so hopelessly fallen, depraved, and weak that they cannot possibly be in the same room, the same visual space as a naked woman without sinning. They are just too evil, and the body itself too, tainted by sin, and the human mind, the male heart is just too evil and weak to be able to tolerate that kind of situation. If you see a woman's body, then there's an automatic lust response. You just can't help it. It's inevitable. Right? And you can picture it in your head, right? The classic story of a pastor telling a story about how he, was walking through Walmart and there was a woman in there wearing yoga pants. And how, she's walking ahead of him, and so he can't take his eyes off of her. And so he, unable to remove his eyes, he just goes over to the other aisle and he, waits around. Loud motor on the highway. Anyway. So he's unable to drag his eyes off of her form. So he goes to the next aisle over and he waits for her to leave. So then she goes, and then he's finally able to do his shopping normally because, apparently he's so weak and evil and she's so very dangerous that this is the only way to go about it, is he has to avoid the imagery itself, which means avoiding humanity, essentially, when you think about it. And then what about water parks? I mean, water parks, oh my goodness. There are Christian men who won't even enter water parks because there are swimsuits in them. Yes, because there are swimsuits, the men won't go in. But you think about it from their perspective, though, right? Because it's basically a fleshly minefield. There are all of these thin bathing suits and all the women. A lot of them are showing a lot of skin, thonginis or really small bikini tops and things like that. And a lot of the material is really thin, so you can kind of still see nipple bumps, and there's the occasional camel toe, or there's, the fact that you can actually see butt cheeks moving past one another up and down really bothers these men. And so, but then to make matters worse, occasionally there are wardrobe malfunctions when you actually see the real thing. My brother told me a story once of being in a water park and just accidentally boop, the woman's boob was out, and so he saw all of that, but these men would get really, really bothered by that. And so they'll be in these situations, they'll see something, and then just boop, lust, because it can't be helped. It's inevitable, right? Let's talk about a little bit of a different scenario. Let's say that you're in a men's Sunday school class one Sunday, right? You're sitting there, and the Sunday school teacher is talking about the Apostle Paul, when suddenly the Apostle Paul stood up in front of them all, and he said, okay, be honest with yourself. Is that really how you as a man would react to a naked woman barging into your Sunday school class? Is it really? Because I think it would be a little bit different. I think it would be very different, actually. Here's what I think would actually happen. The Apostle Paul stood in front of them all and he said, "Ah! Ah! Ah! Everybody out! Everybody out! Go, 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 go! Somebody call the police! Get an ambulance! This woman needs attention, but not that kind of attention! Everybody out! Clear the building quickly! Don't look at her! Don't look at her! Run! Everybody out! Run! Ah! I think that's how it would go. Especially with all those other men around. No one's actually going to have a naked woman just standing in the room and then go. Because the second thing, okay, the first thing you're going to do is look. Maybe you would look first thing tops. But then second thing you would do is look around. Is anyone else seeing this? Is anybody else? Hey, Bob, you can't. And then Bob would be keeping you accountable too. So your first thought would be, wow, naked lady. Second thought would be, wow, can't let anyone catch me looking at this. And so just from social pressure alone, that would be enough to get you out. But you know what would also get you out of the room? Shock. Absolute shock. Because you don't see this. And you know what is the number one response people have whenever they see something that they're convinced is totally, absolutely, like, extremely dangerous? They get scared. And they run away. That's what people do when they're scared. They don't sit there and stare at it. Okay, maybe some people stare at it. But I think generally the response would be fear and shock. Whether you run away or not, I think that the general response would actually be fear and shock. Much less so than sitting there like this. You know? So I think men would be really scared and very flustered, but not aroused. This episode of Mudwalkers has been brought to you by Patreon. You knew it was going to be Patreon. It's never anything else. It's Patreon, which is awesome, but you know, expected. Shout out to Nature Him, Todd, Edward, John S, Joseph, Charlie, Lionheart, Adam M, Edward T, Jay Good, Cyan B, John W, Clifton M, None Here, Thank You Airplane. Hopefully that's a lot quieter on the mic than it is to me. The joys of shooting videos outside. Anyway, Clifton M, None Here, Marty, Austin S, Martin C, Benjamin M, this person. JLDL, Coolest Nudist, Gary, Corky S, Kenneth L, John F, Jeremy H, Richard M, PJ H, Tom L, David B, Joe S, Cedric, Chim K, Dennis R. Yeah, I bet y'all can definitely hear that on the microphone. Hi. Everybody, thank you so much for everything you're doing on Patreon. Everybody, everything. You guys are making this channel possible. You're making my content sustainable, so thank you. I wouldn't be able to put out this much content at this level of quality without my patrons. So, yeah, thank you for making my work possible. Now back to the video. Okay, camera, are you ready now? It's been a few minutes. All right, there we go. Okay, where was I? All that aside, there's another aspect of this that I think doesn't get enough attention from Christian textiles, and that is the basic fact that men actually can handle it. Men really can handle the sight of the human body, male or female, at any age. It just, yeah, doesn't work the way people think it does. This is actually the most important reason that I decided to visit Indian Hills Nudist Park in Slidell, Louisiana. I highly recommend that place, by the way. Awesome place. But, hi Tim. But, yeah, it's actually one of the most important reasons why I went and visited Indian Hills was because I had been reading for 5 years at that point. I first started reading about naturism in 2012, and then in 2017 I finally decided to go to Indian Hills. And the main reason I wanted to go was because I had read and read and read about how easy it turns out to be for men to be able to, for lack of a better word, tolerate the sight of a naked woman. So I decided that, you know, per Romans chapter 14, there's a whole video I have about Romans chapter 14 up here. That per Romans chapter 14, I was convinced that what I was doing was not wrong, so it was okay. But I decided I had to go and see if I believed these men, or at least I wanted to believe them. But in order to get to, like, finally really believing what they said was fact, I had to go and check it out for myself. So that's why I went for the first time. I actually made a whole video about that first experience right here. So I drove the whole way to Indian Hills, right? And I'm super nervous the whole way, and then I get there, and okay, I'm gonna spare you the whole story because like I said, I have a whole video about that already, but I'll just cut down to the main relevant story from that bigger story. And that is, I was sitting by the pool reading Mere Christianity by C.S. Lewis. And I have been spending the day nude around a bunch of other nude people for hours at this point. But this was the biggest real test of the idea for the whole day. I guess somewhere in the middle of the day, around midday, this young couple arrives, this young man, young woman, and they get undressed. They're young, they're in good shape, all the usual things, and then they go get in the hot tub. I'm sitting here reading my book. And then, have you ever been reading a book or on your phone, and then something just kind of goes, like just moves out of the corner of your eye? You kind of go, ooh. And you look back, because, something moves out of the corner of your eye, you don't know what it is, you go check it out, and you go back. So, they're in the hot tub, these two people, and I'm reading my book, and something goes over the back of my book, and I look up, and it's that young lady. She doesn't have anything on, from her head to her feet. She is completely nude, and she's not that far away from me. I remember reading my book, and I saw something pop up, and I just went back to my book. But the actual sequence of events was about like this. I made this face because this was like the exact scenario that I had told was going to like destroy me, morally speaking. It was going to be like overpowering. It was going to be inevitable, irresistible. And yet, I shrugged it off and I went back to my book. Guys, if that's what's keeping you from trying naturism, don't worry about it, okay? I can tell you from experience, as a young, healthy man whose plumbing is in great condition, functionally speaking, all my hormones are in the right place, like we're pregnant with our third child, so like nothing's wrong with me in terms of, function. But I do just fine in naturist settings, because this whole thing about, it being inevitable for men to lust after women when the women don't have any clothes on, it's kind of a crock. It doesn't actually hold water in real life. All of these big reactions that men have to women when they see women's bodies, it's all trained. It's all learned behavior. It's all behavior that can be unlearned. And it actually is unlearned with astonishing rapidity, if you will, in a naturist environment. It just kind of disappears. So even a young man like me with my own history of lust issues, all it took was one time in a naturist environment, and my brain kind of just like boop, reprogrammed itself, and now I can do it. And I hear that from a lot of naturist men, that they go into these experiences a little apprehensive about how it's going to go, and then it's fine. It's a big deal, and it's not a big deal. It's a big deal how wonderful the experience is. But when you find out the negative side isn't there, the negative side turns out to be kind of it's nothing. So it's a huge deal, and it's not a big deal at all at the same time. Yeah. So like I said, what distinguishes me from regular American men, normal men, if you will, is not that I'm somehow asexual or something. It's that I think about it differently, and I think about it differently because I've done it. I've actually been to these places, I've spoken to these people, had normal conversations with naked men and naked women of all ages, and it just... The only reason that what they're wearing matters is that the conversations are better when everyone's naked, which I know sounds crazy, but I actually have a whole video about that right here. If you've never actually been in a room full of naked people having a great conversation, then I highly recommend it, because there's something different about it. It's not like... Sexual tension is not it. That's not what's going on. That might be what outsiders might assume is going on, but it's not. It's not sexual tension. It's something else. There's some kind of... there's a sort of openness to it. A sort of relaxed atmosphere that comes along with, bearing your whole self, as it were. It makes people... I don't know. It makes the conversations better. Because people just, they talk differently. They talk more openly. They talk in a more relaxed way when everyone's naked. I can't put my finger on, why that is, which is why I made a whole word for it in Komi'u. Because there just isn't a way to talk about this very efficiently in English. So if you were suddenly surrounded by a bunch of naked people, how would you respond? Realistically, how do you think you would actually respond? I think it's a fair question. Would you respond with a sexual mindset? Would you panic and run away? Would you panic and freeze up? What do you think would actually happen? If you're like me, and you already know all about me, but like, if you're like me, then you would just have a normal Friday night, like a regular Saturday morning, whatever day it is. Just like, it'd be really normal for me to just spend time with a bunch of naked people because it's kind of my jam. It's what I do. Because seeing people naked should not be something that disturbs or, upends your life. It should just be regular life. Because what are you really seeing when you see a naked person? You're not seeing something alien or monstrous. You're just seeing a human being, just without additives. That's why I always say naked means human. Alright, so I was just editing this video and realized I forgot to say something important. So, two things. One, when you teach men that they are basically incapable of tolerating the sight of other human beings, you're teaching them to choose to be weak. That's not healthy. It's not healthy for anybody, especially for men. The reason I say choose to be weak is because these men are not actually weak. But this social conditioning, this training, is training that choice into us. When you tell us that we are weak, when we're not weak, you're just teaching us to act like we're weak. So guess what? We're going to act weak. So these men that train their whole lives to have this unhealthy lust response when they see women, guess what? Their training kicks in, and that's exactly what they do. But if men have different training, if they train themselves to something different will happen. So train strength, train resilience, train tolerance, train, rationality. As for the second thing, when you teach that someone is morally incapable, you're taking away that person's culpability. So when you combine those two things together, incapacity and moral guilt, it's soul-crushing. For men to think that they can't help something and then feel cripplingly guilty because they did it, something that they don't think they can actually avoid doing, is soul-crushing. I can tell you from experience, as a Christian man, evangelical, in America, living through that as a teenager was kind of hellish. Being taught that I couldn't help it and then being blamed for doing it was awful. Don't do that to men. So this does two things. Number one, most importantly, it raises men up to the capacities that they are born with. Guys, you really can do this. You just have to unlearn the stupid stuff that your culture has taught you about your inability to tolerate the sight of human bodies. You can do this. Okay? If indigenous people in Amazon can do this, if indigenous people in the Amazon can do this, and people from all over the world in the ancient world could do this, and lots of people in the modern world, myself included, can do this, so can you. Okay? I've got other videos you can watch that kind of go over all of that. You really can do this. So, don't keep men down with this. And don't give men this out. Don't teach them to just not try, because that's what they're going to do. When you tell someone that it's impossible to do something, no one's going to try to do that. Okay, I've never tried to jump up to the moon because I don't think I can do that. But I'll tell you what, as soon as someone tells me that I can do something, I've got a shot at trying to do that. Maybe I don't have a shot of actually doing it. Like, if you really convinced me that I could jump to the moon, I might try. Doesn't mean I'm actually going to make it, but if you convince me that I can, I'm going to try. So convince men that they can live their lives without lust. And guess what? They're going to try. But you got to give them the right thing to try with. And that is not conventional modesty. So yeah, in summary, teach men to be strong instead of weak, and don't give men a moral out. Because that's what this whole conventional modesty thing, this insult to men, is an out. The idea that men simply cannot handle the sight of a woman without lusting is insulting. It's insulting to men. It is an insult to men and to our Creator that we are that incapable. So that's where the title of the video came from, in case you were wondering.